Okay, so I think what we will do right now is we'll go ahead and create an empty React.js app, and then as and when people join, they can anyways go back and see the steps. So I'm going to go to the official React website, um, and this is the URL. I'll be sharing it with you guys. Okay, where you can go ahead and get started with creating a React app. So these are the first steps. We'll be using npx create React app to create our first app. Okay, and let me do something. So let me close this folder. Let me open a new window. Okay, tab. Yeah, yeah. Okay, is this better? Okay, so I'm gonna go to cd. I'm gonna go to my desktop, and I'm gonna run the same command which we saw. We'll do npx create React app. And okay, this will create a new React project. Let's see. Yeah, this should take about 2 to 3 minutes to get done. Meanwhile, others can join. um, okay, great. um, we're just creating a fresh install of a React.js project. What we're doing is we are using 1 second. Yeah, let me just pull this here, and let me just pull this here. Great. Node has to be greater than 8.10, npm has to be greater than 5.6. I already have those dependencies installed, so I'm not gonna do that again. Um, and yeah, this will take a minute. It'll get done. Great. I think yep. So our project is created. Next step is going to be opening this in Visual Studio Code. So we have Visual Studio Code right here. So I'm going to open. I'm going to click on File. Then I have to click on Open. It's right here. Okay. Now we'll open our folder. There you go. So we created this new folder right now. You can see. Let's open it up. There you go. So we have a fresh install of React.js. Great. Right. So let's see. Let's try to see if it's built correctly by running it in the browser. So I'm going to open up the terminal, and I'm going to type yarn start. There you go. So yep. Yes. So our app is built correctly and it has started. So far so good. Pretty simple. I'll just keep my terminal open. Okay. Now let's talk about step one in React. What is the entry point? Where is this all coming from? Right. Let's talk about that. So as we know, most projects begin with an index file. Okay. So React has an index file which is stored in the src directory. Okay. So let me just close the terminal up and show you the src directory. Just make this a little bigger. All right. And let's see if we can make this a little. Yeah. Okay. Now in the src directory, I see my index.js. So let me open index.js for you. Bring this to the side. There you go. Right. So this is my entry point of the application. You see it's importing a bunch of stuff, and then you have the React DOM. It's rendering, it's ensuring strict mode, and then it's calling the app component. Okay. Now when I double click app, I see a highlight. It's importing app from /app. This means it's loading app.js. Okay. So we'll go to app.js, and what do we see here? we again see we see a bunch of imports. We see they're importing logo.svg, they're importing a CSS file, and yeah, there's an edit and save and reload. Okay, great. So let's see if if this is indeed the code what we need to change. Okay. Um, right. So let me just go ahead and just see. I think this is the entry point. So I've changed this. Now let me go and refresh. Let me go back. Hmm. There you go. Yep. Right. Right. This is the entry point. Um, Great. Now, we'll not be obviously needing this file, so we will be discarding it. What we will now focus more on is what is the traditional way in which components are built in React, front-end components are built in React, and how hooks is different, how hooks is better, and how um, and how to convert your class component to a functional component. Now, this assumes that you have a basic understanding of a little bit of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It'll be even better if you are already from a React background. If not, try to follow along. Okay, and you can ask certain questions in the chat, and I'll try to address them either during or at the end. Okay, great. So let's first of all let's talk about the building blocks, and let's talk about how React is architectured. React is built on a component based approach. Okay, so everything in React is a component. um, so what we'll do right now is, let's create our own component. Okay, so creating your own component is very easy. Okay, uh, what we can do is we just have to create a new JavaScript file. So let's create one. Let's call this as my component.js. Okay. Now this is an empty JavaScript file. Okay. And we'll make our component in the traditional way. Okay. So step one is always importing React. So you go ahead and import uh, React from React. Okay. And then um, traditional React revolves around building a class. Okay, so we'll make a class. Let's call this class as let's call this class as my component. Okay, it has to extend um, React.component. Okay, and we have to export this class default. Um, yeah, my component. There you go. Okay, and yeah, so let's do a quick test to see if this works. Okay, um, now in React. There are certain rules that you have to follow if you're going ahead with a class-based component. Okay, if you're going ahead with a class-based component, you will have to uh, you know call the render method. Just hold on. Okay, yep. So let's do a render. Now inside render we have to return, so let's return hello world. That's the basic example which everybody sees first. Okay, so let's do a quick hello world. Let's do a return hello world, right? It has to be inside curly braces. Okay, what's the problem? Let's return it in an H1. Okay, my bad. So I think, yeah, just hello world should work. Yeah, great. So right. So now when we do this, do we see hello world here? I'm pretty sure not, because our index file is still our index file is still pointing it's still pointing to app, right? So how do we get hello world to print there? Okay, very simple. Okay, very simple. What we do is we open index.js and we first off we import our app. So since we are, you know, since we are exporting here, okay, since we are exporting my component, we have to import my component. Okay, so let's import it. Import my component from component, okay, semicolon, and let's print it out. So I'm going to comment this out and I'm going to call my component. Great. Now, yeah. So we're using hot reloading. So whenever I make a change in my code base, it should automatically refresh my browser. We'll wait. There you go. So we do see hello world on top left, which means it's showing stuff from my component. Okay, great. Great. So now we don't need this anymore. Let's close this out. Now, let's talk more and more about the functional building blocks of React. We have something known as state, and let's see how we can use state here. Okay. So first off, your component can throw a string. Your component can throw a full-blown HTML. It can throw JSX as well. So what we will be doing is we will be throwing HTML from here and see how that works. Now to throw HTML, you have to wrap it in a curly brace. Okay. And you know what? Let's throw a div. Okay. And inside a div, let's do an H1. And let's put hello world here. See that change? Give it a sec. There you go. Are you guys following so far? Any questions? Anybody? All cool? Great. So yes, yes. I see a few yeses over there. Totally. Yes, sir. Perfect. Great. Let's move forward. So now we got hello world to work for us. Now let's see how we could use the how we can use state in our app. Okay. Now this is again well known in React that to use state you need to have a class component. So we already have a class component. Okay. We need a constructor, and let's see how we can use the state. So um, so the use case of state would be that I will create an input box, and I'll type someone's name, and we want it to be dynamically binded with the DOM. Okay, so like for example, I'll put an input box in the bottom. Let's say input. Let's say type equals text. Okay, and that's it. Now we don't need you. We need this. Okay, great. So yeah, so whenever I type something, um, yeah, whenever I type something in this input box, I want it to be printed to the screen. And as you see right now, if I try to type something, it won't work. Let's give it a second for the screen to load. So right now when I'm typing something, nothing's happening. Just the text is there, and then nothing's happening. Okay. So what we'll do is, okay, now we have our input. Now let's try to create our constructor. Okay. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So to use state, we need a constructor. This is according to the documentation. Constructor. Okay. We need to pass props in the constructor, and inside the method, we need super props. Okay. And we need this dot state equals. Now state is an object in React. So what? Let's do something like, let's call it name. We'll set name to empty, or let's call it Sid, for example. Let's call it Siddharth. Okay. Now, since we've created state and we've stored a variable Siddharth, let's try to print Siddharth on the screen. So how we do that is we use expressions in JSX. So instead of world, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put curly braces and I'm going to write this dot state dot name. Now let's see if this gets printed on the screen. Let's do a refresh. Um, there you go. So my name is printed. We'll wait for a few seconds. Yeah, there. So my name is printed. So whatever I change in state, let's say I add my full name and I change and I save, it will get updated here. Hopefully. Great. Now the agenda is that if I type any name here, it should dynamically update the state so that we see that name update here. Okay. Let's see how we can do that. Okay. So input boxes have something known as an onChange property. Let's try to leverage that. Okay. So what we can do here is let's first set the value to my value. Okay. And we have something known as an onChange. And let's create a method called handle change. Okay. And let me just close this up so that we have more room. Okay. Value equals. Okay. onChange. Okay. Now we need to create this function onChange. So let's create a function on top. Let's create handle change. Change. Uh, since onChange, whenever a change is triggered, an HTML event is created. So I think this will get an event. Yeah, correct. This will get an event. And the goal is to update the state and then on change of as soon as anybody enters something, it should update the state, and then the state is being called here. So this should update it on the screen dynamically. So let's go ahead and change the state. So how you update state is you have a method known as set state. Okay. And then in set state you have to uh, pass the object which you want to change. So I again want to change name, and the name has to be event dot target dot value. Okay. Now again, for this to work, I mean, I'm pretty sure this will fail. Okay. um, yeah, just a moment. Yeah, because I have to again bind handle change to my class, otherwise I cannot use this dot handle change. So we have to, now this is again a mandatory thing that you have to do in a class based component, and you would be familiar if you were already coding in React. So let's do handle change is equal to this dot, oh no, this dot handle change dot bind this. Okay, there you go. I think I messed something up. um, right? I have to do it in my constructor. Yeah, my bad. There you go. Great. So now I've binded handle change. Now let's see this in action. Fail to compile. Yeah, please refresh. I'm going to first show problem. So Aditya's question. So I'm going to first show you how class components work. What are the lifecycle methods, and then I will show existing hooks, and also I will show how to make your own hooks. So yeah, so creating custom hooks is a part of the scope. Let me just write it down. Great. So now let's look at, yeah, so let's try to see. Now, since we are updating our state here, okay, we are seeing that the input box, whatever we're typing in the input box is being updated on the screen. So if we type Sam, Tom, Rahul, it works flawlessly. Okay. Now, let's try to run you down through the code. What happened here? Okay. So when this component is created, we created a constructor, we created a state, we assigned a value to the state, we created a function which will update the state, and we're calling it on change. Okay. Now, it's okay if you don't understand what is happening here, because it takes some time to get used to writing code in React. But this is how you write code in React. So let me keep the state as empty. Okay, so if I keep this as empty and I refresh the screen, if I refresh the screen, it should start with empty, and then it should allow me to set things. I hope. Right. So, yep, this is working. Okay, great. Now, now let's try to play with something, some change, right? So we have the title of this page. If you see, the title of this page is React app. Now let's try to modify the title of the page programmatically. Okay, how can we do that? Okay, so there's a problem here. So when we write our code in the constructor, all of this gets executed before our render function. Okay, so when your DOM is rendered or when your HTML is rendered, this gets executed before that. So if I try to update the title of the page before the title is actually available, it may not work. Okay, so React has a lifecycle method which is known as component did mount, which allows us to run code after our DOM has been rendered. Right, it is your old school. It is similar to your old school document.ready. So let's do something like component did mount. Okay, and yeah, so let's go ahead and yeah, let's change the browser title. So that can be easily done by accessing the document object. We can change document.title, and let's bind it to state. So whatever we type in the input box, our it should be updated. So let's do that. So let me keep it initial name. Let me keep this as initial name, and let's use state here. We can do this dot state dot name. Right. So once we do this and we come back here, just need to refresh because there's a delay. Yeah, so my system's not. Yeah, it's behaving a little slow today. There you go. So if you see now, the value that we see here of initial name is now also my title. If you see on top, this is my title. Okay, great. Now, but what happens here is when I change it to, let's say, Sam, okay, I see that my page is updating, but it's not able to update my title. Okay, so let's understand what React does under the hood. Okay, as soon as you change the state, what React does is it re-renders the component, just the render method, okay, with the updated value of the state. So when I'm updating the name here, it's updating my state. Okay, but it had no effect on updating the title because component did mount only runs once. Okay, it only runs during the initial render, it does not run again. So for events that need an effect where you want to update your page, we have to use something known as component did update. Okay, so let's do component did update. Did update. Okay, and let's do the same thing here as well. Let's refresh, and now let's go back and see this in action. Okay, now we see its initial name. Now let's try to change it. Let's try to, there you go. You see, as and when I changed the state, it updated the title. Okay, so now we've understood few crucial points in a class-based component. Did mount, did update. Okay, great. Now, uh, now this is what your code looks like when you're making a class-based component. Okay, now we'll discuss certain things about using hooks, but before we do a deep dive into hooks, I want to first talk about why hooks was made. Okay, then again, so if you're a fan of functional programming, you want to make a function based component, you don't want to use this class method, and you're sick and tired of understanding what this is, this, okay, and you don't want to write ugly code that looks like this, and you know, often you fail to understand what happens in did mount, did update, right? What is this, how to resolve this, right? So that's a problem that a lot of React users faced. Okay, and React took that into consideration. Okay, so this is very confusing for humans. This is also very confusing for machines. So when you look at class code, and when you're building a React application, that React application is compiled and minified. Okay, so once you minify the application, the class names in your the function names in your class are not minified, they remain as it is. Okay, even if you have any unused function as part of your class, that is still a part of your bundle, it's still a part of your code, right? The React team also faced initial difficulty in while hot reloading and, you know, in compiler optimization. So they decided, you know, it's best if we try to, you know, give an alternative from this situation. Right now, you see, I'm also duplicating certain logic here, right? I had to write this twice, right? But you know, so now this is just a very small application. You might not notice the difference, but when your application grows and grows, this becomes a challenge that, you know, you need to write duplicate code here and here, and keep a track of, you know, if you wrote it in did mount and did not write it in did update, that's again a problem which developers faced. Okay, so now introducing hooks. Okay, what are hooks? A hook is a function, okay, provided by React, you know, which lets you hook into React features. Okay, now let's try to create another component. Okay, and now let's not use class this time. Let's use a functional component, and let me demonstrate one hook. And I think that's when you'll understand how it's better, and what an actual hook is. Okay, so let me create a new component. So this is my component, and let me create a new one. I'm going to call it um, my hook component, let's say, or let's rename it to my component using hooks. Using hooks.js. Okay, it's an empty. Um, so step one is always we import React. React. Okay, and we make a function. We call it my component using hooks. And since this is a function, remember, functional approach is very easy. Okay, now since this is a function, all you have to do is just return it. So you do an export default my component using hooks. Okay, now we'll do the same hello world example here also. So we'll do something along the lines of returning hello world, hello world. Okay, and let's return it, and let's try to put it in our index file. Let me just copy this. Let's go to index. Right, let's import. Let's import this. Okay, and let's, yeah, and we're done. Okay, now let's comment out my component. Okay, and instead use this. Instead use our new component that we've created. Okay, and let's refresh. Let's do a quick refresh. I think this should be quick. Yeah, we're back to hello world. Great. So when you look at this versus yeah, so let me open my component using hooks here, and my component here. Okay, now, and obviously we should shut this out. So when you compare these two, one on the left and one on the right, okay, remember now hello world is so easy here. Okay, I did not need to declare a class. I did not need a render method. I could just return hello world. Very simple and very elegant. Okay, and yeah, so let's create our HTML. Let's do the hi hello world and everything. So let's do that. So let's remove this, and yeah, so let's do a div. Okay, let's do h1. Let's do a hello. Great. So hello world. Okay, baby steps. We'll go ahead and do baby steps, and since we've saved this, let's see if the h1 is rendered properly. Yeah, so hello world has rendered properly, and it's using the h1 tag properly. Now let's go ahead and recreate the same thing that we did using the class component. Okay, using the class component with a functional component. Okay, great. Just stay here, don't go away. Okay, great. So we'll need again an input. Okay, so let's go ahead and make an input. No, not needed. Let's type text value. Okay, value has to be something. Now, how do I? Okay, fine. So let me start by explaining how to use state. Okay, so this is the first hook that we're going to tap into React. Okay, so React has something known as use state. Use state. Now, if you remember, we had to create a whole class and we had to create a whole constructor just to be able to use state. Okay, now since we can use the use state hook from React and we don't have to go ahead and do all of that, so see how simple it is. Okay, so we can do let name um, name set name is equal to use state that. Okay, and what we can do is same thing that we did here. Okay, instead of doing this dot state dot name, since this is a variable which is already available, we can directly use name here. Okay, and let's give the value name here. Space. Okay, and let's see the change refresh here. There you go. Okay, now so I'll take a minute and explain what has happened here, because for those of you that don't know what hooks is, you might not understand what's happening. I think the return part is pretty clear. We're just outputting a bunch of HTML. Okay, now inside our functional component, we've created an array. Okay, which has two things. First one is name, second one is set name, and we're getting that by using state. Now, useState is nothing but a function which React is giving us. Okay. Now, hooks are also nothing but functions. Now, in my function, when I'm calling useState, I'm passing a string. I'm passing Siddharth, right? So it returns two things to me. What does it return? First, it returns a variable. It's called name, which has this value Siddharth. Okay, and it returns a function set name. Now we haven't used set name yet. We will be using set name. Okay, I'll show you how set name works. Basically, that's a function to update name. Okay, so I think let me just quickly use set name also, and then I think you will understand better. So let's do the same thing. Let's do on change. Okay, we can create a method called as let's say let's use the same name. Let's call it handle change. Okay, so let's call it handle change. Okay, so let's make a function handle change. Obviously this will take event like before, and the change is we use set name here, and we pass event dot target dot value. Now once I save this and I refresh, so we essentially recreated what we had done with the class. Okay, but in a more functional approach and by using state here. So when you compare these two codes, right? So let me just put it down so that it's much more readable, so that you can read this side by side. Okay, now there you go. Let's put this down. That's readable. Let's put this down. Let's put this down. Let's put this down. Yeah. So now when you compare the code on the right versus the code on the left, I hope you see a big difference and ease of access in using hooks. Right. So everybody following along so far, because now I'm going to deep dive more into hooks and explain how to handle effects and how to make custom hooks. So I just want to take a check from the team. So far so good. Is it do you want me to explain something else, or can I continue? Yash is saying, can I explain this method again? Yash, do you still need to understand this method again? Hey, is everyone following through? All right, great. So I'm going to continue. Since nobody has any questions, I'm going to continue. Okay, great. So now we've used state here. Okay, now we've used the use state hook to essentially create what we had created there. Now just see, we got rid of this handle change nonsense, this bind nonsense. Okay, and this is much more cleaner, I feel. Okay, now let's try to do the same thing with title. How we had updated title. Let's try to do this with hooks. Okay. Now, for me to update something which runs after render, okay, there is another hook that React offers. It's called useEffect. So let's see how useEffect works. Okay, so now in useEffect, let me just use effect here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically run method. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to update the document title, which is my name. Okay, and let's see. So imagine useEffect as component did mount. Okay, whatever things will have side effects on your page, like when you change the title, it needs to run after the document is loaded. We use use effect, and I'll explain more about use effect in further examples. Okay, now let's see, did my title update? Let's do a refresh. Give it a second. So now you see the title is my name, and as and when I update anything, it updates my title as well. So now we've essentially recreated entirely what was done here into this one. Okay. Now you see few lines of code, less complexity, and you might be asking, okay, what the hell is use effect? Okay, it's again a hook. Okay, um, which runs after, you know, so use effect is again similar to component did mount and component did update all combined into one. So whatever duplicate code we had to write here, we now only need to write it in one place. So some things that we want which can run after effects related to something, it can be written in use effect. So now we got rid of this completely. Okay, so far so good. Let's go ahead and see more lifecycle methods. Okay, now I'm going to switch back to my class based approach. Okay, and try to show you how React components handle subscription. How we handle subscription. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to subscribe to the browser resize event, and I'm going to get the browser's width on the screen. And as and when I resize my browser, I'm going to show you the screen size here. Okay, so I'm going to do that in the traditional way first, and then I'm going to do it with state. So I'll have to, let me close this up. Yeah, so we need this back. You need to go away, save, close. Great. Okay. Um, close component. Great. So how we do it? How we'll do this is we have a window object which gives us something known as an inner width. Okay. Now let's set it to state. Okay. So I'm setting page width is going to be equal to window dot inner width. Okay. Okay. Now let's go ahead and use this. Um, let's do this in an H3. H3. Okay. And this dot state dot page width. And let's write more stuff. No, we don't need this. So we can write the screen width is equal to. All right. So now since we've written screen width is equal to, we are tapping into the page width. Page width will be calculated when in constructor level. So let's see if that works. Let's do a quick refresh. Great. So my screen width is 1280. But as you may notice, if I resize it right now, it won't work. So if I try to resize it, no, no, it's not changing, right? It's not changing. So what do we need to do? We need to add an event listener to listen we need to add an event listener to listen to the screen resize event. Okay, and we can only do that once the DOM is loaded. So we'll write it in component did mount. Okay, so let's write a window dot add event listener. We'll look for resize, and we'll do handle resize. Okay, now we'll have to again create a method to handle resize. So let's do it at the bottom. Handle resize. Okay, now in handle resize, what we need to do is we need to do this dot set state. We basically need to re-update the value of width, page width. Okay, so copy. Okay, so copy, paste, and this has to be again window dot inner width. Okay, inner width. ETH. Okay, and obviously this will not work because I have to bind handle resize. So yeah, okay, let me just put this back. So great. Now since we've made this change, let's go ahead and refresh. And let's try to resize. There, you see. So my screen is now being resized dynamically, and it's being updated to my DOM as well. Okay, great. But if I leave this code as it is, there's a chance of a memory leak because once we are going to a different page or a different component, we are not removing the listener. This listener is just there, right? So to avoid memory leaks, we have to remove this listener as well when the component is unmounted. Okay, so there's another lifecycle method which I'm introducing. It's called component will unmount. Okay, now what we need to do is very simply we need to remove the listener, remove event listener, and basically it's the same thing. We need to remove the resize event listener. There you go. Now I've avoided memory leaks in my application. So this is just an example. There can be more things like you are listening to updates on chat, so you're subscribing to a chat event here, but you have to unsubscribe when your page is unmounted, right? Or you have created a socket, you're subscribed to a socket connection here, okay? But when your component is done, you need to unsubscribe to socket, right? There's more cleanup things that need to happen in component will mount. That's why this lifecycle method was presented in the first place. Okay, so so what we'll do now is we'll try to recreate the same thing with hooks. Okay, there you go. Here, I compared with hooks. Okay, great. Okay, so step one is we need we need page width. So how we can do that is we can create a new variable. It's called page width. We can call it set page width. Is equal to use state, and what will we using? We will be using document dot. Okay, let me just go ahead and remove this. I don't want to see this. Document dot inner width. Inner width. Oh, sorry, it's window dot inner width. My bad. Okay, now let's print it at the bottom. Let's do an H3. Okay, the screen width is equal to. Now just have to print page width. Okay, obviously now we have to change in index.js to show our updated component. So let's go to index.js. Yeah, we're using this one. We're not using this one. Close, and let's do a refresh. There you go. I'm getting a screen size. Yeah. Yeah. I am getting the screen size, however, but when I resize, it will not work because obviously I already told you if you're changing something after the DOM is loaded and you want it to reflect, which involves accessing the window or the document object, you need to run it in component mount and component will update. So in case of hooks, what we can do, we can use effect. Okay, so now we need to add a listener. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a listener. Now, since it's a different effect, it's not a change to the title. I'm going to use its separate use effect method. I mean, it's just my personal choice. You can write it in this use effect also. Okay, I'm creating a new use effect. Okay, and this is the arrow syntax, by the way. I'm calling an anonymous function here, and this is again part of ES6. If you don't know, you should look it up. It's new syntax. Now, what do we need to do? Yeah, we need to add the event listener. So we'll do window dot add event listener. We're at on resize. We want to call handle resize, let's say. Okay. Now we need this function. Okay. Now since this handle resize function, I can create it outside, but since it's only being used here, I'm going to create it inside my use effect. Okay. So I can create it on top. Let's call it function handle resize. Great. Set page width. So I'm going to set page width to what? What's the current width? So current width is again window.inner width and done. So simple. Okay. Now let's see if this works. Refresh. Just a quick note, guys. You will not be getting these errors. I'm getting this error because I'm streaming from my machine and I'm running a server, and for some reason today my CPU cycle is way higher than must be because of a few running background processes. But as and when I make a change here, I save, it automatically updates the screen. But then sometimes it's in the middle of my completion. That's why you're seeing a delay. You will not see this delay when you're actually doing it at home. Okay, so when I see, so when I rechange, so when I change everything, when I resize, I see the change on the screen. Okay, now let's talk about the cleanup, right? That we need to unsubscribe, or remove this event listener. How do we do that in use effect, right? So use effect by default allows you to return a cleanup method where you can unsubscribe to already subscribed events. Okay, so this is how it works. You return a function, maybe call it cleanup or whatever you want. This can be an anonymous function also, not a problem. And you do the same thing here. You do add की जगह पे remove, you remove event listener. That's it, and we're done. So if we refresh, this should still work. Now coming to the part where some people wanted to understand how to create your own custom hooks. Okay, I'll be talking about creating your own custom hooks now. Okay, hold on. All right, great. Great, it works as expected. And if we compare our new code with the previous code, you can clearly tell the difference. Just look at this code, and you can go back and look at this code. Not this one. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So again, no need for the bind method, no need for tapping into all of these lifecycle methods, and Yeah, and your code is even bigger here, more difficulties for beginners. I understand if you're already used to it, if you're already used to coding this way, I get it that writing things in hooks might look a bit difficult to you, might seem a bit new to you. Okay, but this is definitely an easier way, even from a developer's point of view. Right. Great. Now, someone says, "Hey, I want to create my own custom hooks." I've used use effect. I've used use state, which is again a part of React. I want to, I want to create my own custom hook. So let's do that. Let's see how you can create your own custom hooks. Okay. Again, if we stick to the basics, we understand that hooks are nothing but functions. Before I go ahead and explain this very important concept, is everybody following through so far? Can I get a yes or no in the comments? All right, I see two yeses. I will take that as a yes and I will move forward. Great. All right. Now, so creating your own custom hook. So what I want to do right now is, since I wrote this ugly looking code base of figuring out the window width and changing the window width, let me create my own custom hook for window width. Okay. Again, key thing to remember, where can we get all the hooks? Um, yeah, I'll explain. Predefined hooks, right? So it's part of the documentation. I will share it at the end of this note. I'll put it in the comments so that you can consume. It's very nicely defined in the library. So let's create our own custom hook. So remember, hooks are nothing but functions. Okay. So let's make our own hook at the very bottom. Okay. So let's make a function. Let's call it use window width. Okay. At the very end, and let's copy everything that's related to window width. So what is related to window width? This is related. Get out. Come here. Okay. This whole use effect function is related to window width. Get out. Come here. Okay. And so basically the ideology of this hook is to just give me the window width and the latest window width, based on, even if the browser is resizing, I want the latest window width. So let's return page width here. Okay. Now what we need to do at the top is we need to do let page width, or let's call this as width, equals use window width. That's it. And what we need to do is here just replace this with this. It could be the same variable as well, but I've just changed it. Now let me see if this worked. Okay, let's just refresh. There you go. Now let me just resize the window. Yeah, it works. Yeah, it works. Now let me explain what I did here. How did I create my own hook, and what did I do with it? Okay. So when you look from top to bottom, what's there? We have name and set name that's using a state. We have a width variable which is using our hook. Our hook is called use window width. Again, hook is nothing but a function. So if you remember that, programming in React becomes very easy. So you come down, what is it doing? It's declaring a state variable called page width, set page width. It's using state. State is again storing the value of the current window size. Okay. And then we are declaring a use effect, which is doing what? Which is adding an event listener, which listens to resize. Okay. And then calls handle resize. Handle resize. If there's a resize has happened, it will set the latest width right here. And once all of this is done, I'm returning it outside. So once I return the page width, it's being captured by a variable here. Okay. And I'm using it on the screen. So this is how simple creating your own hook is, right? So what people generally do is you make this as a part of an npm library, okay, and or a package or a separate file. Like let's call this as windowwidth.js and import it on the top. We can import the same thing from the top and use it like a hook. So all in all, hooks are very simple. Okay, they're just it's just a functional approach, um, and moving code from a class-based approach to a functional approach. There are certain rules of hooks, though. Rule number one: you cannot um, use state in a conditional. So you cannot do something like if true, uh, and then declare this inside this. This is not allowed. You cannot do that. Okay. So that's rule number one. Okay. Hooks must be declared with a naming convention as use window width. The React has a lint which checks for the hook name. Okay. And so if you want to look at hooks, right? So Pankaj had asked where can we get all the hooks. So let me just quickly go ahead and grab it. There you go. So this is the React website. You have everything that I spoke about here. Okay, using state, using effect, rules of hooks, building your own hooks API reference. So this talk today, I've basically covered how to get started with hooks, how to create your own React application, and a very quick and simple demo. Okay, I have a request for from the attendees today, right? So if at all you liked, um, if at all you liked what I showed today, okay, I would request that you guys go ahead and um, give 5 stars to ITLH. I'm going to be pasting the links in the comment section now. Okay, hold on, just give me a moment. So yeah, so on Facebook and Google, it'll be great if you guys can give us reviews. Okay, this is the Facebook page. Um, this is a Google page. We would appreciate a 5 star review on Facebook and Google. If you guys have any questions, I can take those questions now. We will still be adding you guys to a group of ITLS community. So post this. So now, since you guys understood what hooks are, let me just walk you through what is the next step. Okay. So we have a power packed mini course upcoming where we will be giving you we'll be going in depth in React, and we will be talking about JSX. We will be talking about ES6 in detail. We will be talking about state and props. So today I covered everything at a very high level. Okay. um, and we'll go in detail about React lifecycle, how to convert an HTML template to a React.js project. Then again, we will be going in detail with hooks. We will be checking real world examples of how to build applications. We will be consuming Laravel APIs in React.js. So how to make a end-to-end project where all APIs are already defined and you can use them in React. And then again, there's going to be a live project that ITLH will give, which will come from Centillion. Okay. So yeah, so a follow-up to today's session is going to be an upcoming session from ITLH. It's called HTML to React. Okay. The curriculum is going to be for 6 lectures of 4 hours each. Okay. So when we look at the cost, the costing will be around the costing for everyone is going to be 8,000 rupees. But if you're part of today's seminar, you can get in touch with me, and we can reduce the cost to 5,000, especially for you guys that are attending today. Okay. If you're part of this entire course, what do you get to learn? Okay, you get to understand how developers think when they create UI components. What will be the best practice for making enterprise applications? What are the tools and shortcuts that we use? We will be covering everything using Git. Okay, there's going to be a trainer for doubt solving during each lecture. And if at all you complete the project, you get an internship letter. Mm. So Centillion gets a lot of React-based projects, React.js-based projects, and a lot of requirements um, So they ask us, do we have React resources they want to hire, right? So if you attend this course, you will be eligible, and then we can give you references to for jobs that are by ITLH. And the next step after understanding React should be React Native, because React Native basically uses React everywhere and just a few Android and iOS components. So this is a big win. If you do React.js, you get to jump into React Native, and you get references for jobs, you get references for freelancing, and a lot more, right? So that is it for today. Um, if any of you have any questions, I can take them now, or we will be ending the stream. I'll wait for 5 minutes if anyone wants to ask anything. Right. So Chirag is asking, what is the use of strict mode? Okay. So strict mode is basically um, like it'll highlight potential problems in your application. So same like when you have ES6, when you want to write ES6 in JavaScript, you enable strict checks. Okay. Um, so React can be used in in a wrong way, right? And a lot of times, so when these features are available, you might, like how I mentioned, one of the examples is you should not, do use state in a conditional. Okay. So strict mode, it highlights potential problems in your application. Okay. And it's basically for warning. So when I open my console here, let me just show you my console. There you go. I see a few warnings here at the bottom. Okay. Now strict mode does this. It will give me warnings related to some functionality I'm using that I'm not supposed to use, or if I'm using it in a wrong way. Like, there you go. I get one that app is defined but never used. I hope that answers your question. Someone wants a webinar for ES6. Great. I can definitely do that in the future. Why not? I appreciate that. Yes, we can do React ES6 sometime. I hope all of you understood what I was trying to show today. And if at all you found anything that you did not understand, or you would want me to change something at during my next webinar, please let me know. You can either post a comment now, or you can privately post it to Shahrukh and team, or whoever you got in touch with. That will be great. So if you look at React.js, like this is one of my closing notes that I want to talk about. If you look at React.js, um, what it does is it relies more on your underlying knowledge of ES6 and JavaScript. It does not force you to learn more and more about how React works, right? So when you compare this with libraries like Vue.js and Angular, they have a lot of boilerplate to get started. They have a lot of concepts that you need to learn. React is very easy. very fast, and lets you build a component layer. It's highly performant, and I think everyone should focus on at least learning React. It's very simple to get started with. If you have basic JavaScript knowledge, you should not have any problem learning React. Anything else you would want to ask? I'm here till 1:30. We have 8 more minutes. I'll wait. Wait, for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Siddharth Kumar, and I'm the CTO of Centillion Tech PT Ltd. And I work closely with ITLH in ensuring quality in training. And I'm primarily into software architecture, software development. Um, yeah, I think most of you we've interacted in the past. I see a few new names here. You're welcome, Chirag. Is ES6 enough as a prerequisite for React? Yeah, ES6 and a little bit of HTML and CSS knowledge would be more than enough. Um, yeah, so the thing is, if I'm conducting an ES6 webinar, I will cover everything from basics. But if we are covering, so in the React, um, the six lecture piece that we are covering, I'm covering ES6 as well. So let me quickly open up this, right? So the curriculum which I'm covering basic, um, I'm covering forms, lists, keys, fetch, and everything that will be covered as part of, going in depth with React. Guys, just a quick reminder to rate IITLH. Give us a 5 star if you like this event. We're both on Facebook and on Google. I'm just posting the links again. We still have 5 more minutes if anybody wants to ask anything. Also, a quick reminder that you can go back and rewatch the stream. It's completely scrollable. It will be live for at least 12 hours, so you can follow along and try to recreate these examples as how I've created them. You're welcome, Dhruv.